Stone's company.
Ah.
And so you probably don't also know, that sounds like a trivia freak here, but it's interesting, the Beatles owned 10% of NEMS Enterprises. So the Monkees were in effect promoted by the Beatles company.
Excellent.
And you may not have realised that.
Excellent. And rightly so.
The whole thing was like a NEMS, like a Beatles operation. This is your press conference in London when you came over to tour. There's you having maybe one or two sheets there.
Have what?
One or two sheets in the wind.
Yeah, that was only one or two.
Yeah.
In my Indian outfit, you know.
The man on the right-hand side, I don't know if you can see the photograph, running the press conference, that's the Beatles press officer, Tony Barrow.
Oh, I remember Tony, yeah.
Who's running it, he died this year.
Well, then Derek would have been there too, somewhere. Right?
No, Derek was still in LA at that point. But this was the press conference where you happened to arrive in England at the very week when Paul McCartney had admitted to taking LSD. And it was immense news, and really it was the one question you were going to get hit with. And I found a transcript of the interview in which the reporter said, have you taken LSD? And you said, that's the question we've been waiting for.
I did.
Right. And you said you drank coffee. Peter said he took aspirin. Mike said he got high on vitamins. And David, a lad from Manchester, said that X-Lax kept him going.
You know, I don't know what it would have been like for them. But we were tightly regulated. We actually were given briefings, like CIA briefings, you know, in the very early days.
Yeah.
And they made it very clear, and it's because this was the show was on NBC. And the NBC censors, standards and practices, it was called. They were very concerned right from the get-go about these four long-haired weirdos being on television, believe it or not, because at that time, the only time you ever saw long-haired weirdos on television, they were being arrested for crimes against nature and anti-war things. So the show nearly didn't sell. Because of that worry from the NBC affiliates
deeply conservative times still in America.
I'm sorry?
Deeply conservative time, particularly on television.
Yeah. They're very, very conservative and very highly regulated. And so I remember getting briefings from the head of the television company, Jackie Cooper, famous actor who was the head of Screen Gems at the time, the publishers, the record company, the producers of the show, and we actually had mock press conferences. And they would ask us questions like, what do you think about the war? And we were like prompted and say, what war? Or I'm on X-Lax.
Yes.
Or they were very concerned about it.
Yes.
And rightly so. I mean, the Monkees was not about protesting. It was not about making a statement. It wasn't supposed to be about that. And I personally, I mean, I can't speak for the other guys, I had no problem with that. I got it. You know, this was a children's show. And it's funny, if you go back, and again, you read that Timothy Leary paragraph, Timothy Leary's chapter in his book, the Monkees fulfill the same sort of dynamic, the same sort of thing that in the Second World War, and even going back to the Depression. If you go back and look at the movies that were made during the Depression, it was Gold Diggers of Hollywood, and it was all this glitter and glamour, and everybody was happy, and everybody was rich, and they had money, and they had fun. We just want to be singing, because it was counteracting and that's what Hollywood typically would do during the Second World War. It was dancing and singing to counteract the stuff the negative stuff that was going on at the time. And in the 60s, 66 and 7, there was a lot of negative stuff going on.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to scoot forward because we're running out of time. Now, the Monkees show came to an end after just 2 seasons.
Yeah, but there was 26 episodes a season. Yeah. Now there's maybe 8. In a typical American show. You might get an order for 8 or 12. Yeah. So it's the equivalent now of being 4 or 5 seasons.
Okay. The Monkees, the Beatles led to the Monkees. I think that much is clear in the sense of the way you looked at the whole notion of the four of you. The Monkees, when you finished the Banana Splits, started. I don't remember that connection, but
So it's a cartoon show.
it occurred to me that John, Paul, George, and Ringo became Micky, Mike, Peter, and Davy, and they became Fleagle, Bingo, and Snorky. So the Beatles led to the Banana Splits. Through the Monkees.
Yeah. I don't know that show. I never saw it, but obviously it was was it animated or it was people in
costume?
costume?
People inside.
Oh, it was people in costume.
Yeah, Hollywood stars in a way. You had your movie Head. That's
Wonderful movie, yeah.
We could talk about that for about an hour, but we can't. I just want to round off by looking at how you stayed in touch with these guys. This is not you, this is Peter Talk, but where he is with George on the Wonderwall sessions. This is George showing Peter the sitar. There you are with...
Now that's Tin Sheets the win.
The full 10 with Harry Nilsson.
Oh, yeah.
That's Nancy Andrews, I think, Ringo's then girlfriend, Ringo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I was going to say, what do you remember of that, but maybe not too much.
No, I remember all the people. I don't remember necessarily that particular moment in time. It looks like we're having a great time. That was during. That would have been during the early '70s, and surprised John is not there because there's some wonderful stories about. Oh, there you go. That was at the Troubadour one night, I believe. That was it. Alice, who's my next door neighbor.
Alice Cooper.
Alice Cooper, yeah, and. I do actually remember, a lot of that because it was I was, such a huge fan, but I lived a pretty normal life myself during this period. I was married, I had a child, my wife's parents, she was from Manchester, Samantha Just, and we lived in this big house in Laurel Canyon, had a lot of parties. One quick story. When John came to town in the early 70s, Harry and I were very, very close. And I'll do a shameless plug. If you get a chance, there's a new album that the Monkees have out called Good Times. And the title track is Good Times by Harry Nilsson. And we found these tracks from the 60s, multi-tracks, so they had been intended to be released. Harry doing a lead vocal for me to eventually sing, but it's an incredible vocal, of course, for Harry Nilsson. And on Good Times, the title track, I am able to sing a duet with Harry Nilsson, and it's just fantastic. But anyway, so I might have been Harry or somebody else said, John's coming to town, why don't we throw him a party? And I had a big party house, and so sure enough, we started calling around, and everybody showed up to say hi to John in Los Angeles. And during the evening, I remember somebody said, Brian Wilson's going to show up. And I'm like, no way, because he was still, we were very concerned about him. He was still in his room and in the sandbox, and we hadn't heard, nobody really heard from him in quite a while. So I took it with a grain of salt. I was like, that'd be wonderful, but I doubt it. Sure enough, 2 o'clock in the morning or something, a limo pulls up, and it's Brian with his handler, that psychologist guy at the time. And we're all like, wow, that's so cool. And he comes in, sure enough, in a bathrobe and beach flip-flops, the thong and flip-flops, that's it. And a robe, bathrobe. And because he wanted to meet John.
Right.
And so they chat and we eventually end up in the studio, my little garage studio, and I had, guitars and mics and stuff, kind of. And we started jamming and playing, and Brian's at the piano, and I think John was on the guitar, Harry, I think, was on an organ, and I'm playing the drums, and just jamming and stuff. And Brian starts playing this typical sort of Beach Boy riff. Da-da-da-da-da, California, da-da, beach and the girls, and da-da-da-da-da. And he just keeps doing these same 8 bars, like over and over. It's like, hey, California, hosts on the beach, boy, and the da-da-da, and we're all playing along. I remember it felt like it was an hour. It wasn't probably, but it felt like it just. And finally, and I got this on tape, of these terrible basement tapes. Finally, John Lennon says, "Brian, go to the fucking bridge." I'll leave you with that.
What are you doing in 2016? You got the new album out?
Yeah, and I feel so blessed to have this hit album, top 20 in the States, #1 in vinyl. And Carole King, Neil Diamond, oh my God, Andy Partridge, Noel Gallagher, and Paul Weller. Great tune by them. And then these indie rock people from the States, Rivers Cuomo from Weezer and Ben Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie. It's just, I feel so blessed. And a little bizarre side note, it occurred to me the other day that if the equivalent would have happened in 1966, it would have been Al Jolson or Enrico Caruso having a hit record from 1916. States there. I keep my fingers crossed, have every intention of coming back on tour here.